Welcome everyone. Thanks for making it. This has been a long time in the coming, and it's taken a lot in the making. And a huge thanks to everyone that supported this activity. Essentially, the SESA Management Committee, a whole heap of people around them. Chris, as you just saw, Barry, who's sitting in the background, who was central to this. Yalini with the websites. But really, this has been a volunteer effort across the committee to enable this event, which I trust will do justice to what we try and do and what we're passionate about from a systems engineering and a systems thinking perspective. So my purpose today really is to contextualize the VSFs, remind us about why we're here and what brings us to and makes this profession the best there is, pretty much. Introduce you to SESA in very broad terms, and then really hand over to Kerry to talk about today and the future where INCOSE A and systems engineering is going. We'll follow that up with Bill, who'll talk about local initiatives and as SESA president, what's been happening in that space and where it's going. And then we have time for an open discussion forum. Given the time frames we've got, as Chris pointed out, it'd be good to capture questions, and if we can hold the questions to the end, that'll be good to get past the material that's been put together. And we've got about 25 minutes roughly for question and answer time, depending on how we go. So I hope to take about 12 minutes or so to get through what I've got, and then I'll hand over to Kerry, and then we'll go from there. Just to start off with, I would contextualize or remind us about why we all sort of come back to this stuff and sort of have become very passionate about it. And really all comes back to systemic ecosystems thinking and how we apply that in our spaces. And as we go through the virtual systems forums that are happening this week and next week, let's think about those first principles. And a lot of you have heard this story, but I'll use it because it's really a simple and very short, but very simple point to make. So nice little image of a rat there. And some of you probably know where I'm going with this. So in French colonial rule in Vietnam, they suddenly had an explosion of the rat population in Hanoi. And so what they did was they offered a reward, right, to kill the rats. And it was pretty good. People sort of responded. And the idea was that to prove that you'd kill the rats, you had to bring the rats' tails in. And the rat population dropped significantly, very quickly. But then we started to get the entrepreneurial side of things happening, and people realized that you didn't actually have to give them the rat claim the reward, you just needed the tails. So in order to keep business going, the rats were then released back with their tails cut off, and people started to claim the reward. The rat population, in fact, went up. And so the point being that we deal with the symptoms and not the actual root causes. We end up with good intentions, but unintended consequences. And while this was a fairly, I guess, a lighthearted story, there are so many similar stories we see around us today that reflect this concept of quick fixes that backfire. And there are archetypes that systems thinking reminds us of, is where these things happen, where we do something and not look at the short term, and the longer term consequences come back to pay. There are classic examples similar to the rat tail, the cats in Borneo, the rabbit plague in Australia with the myxomatosis aspect of it. But even more serious effects. There are also the concept of where we fix the initial issue, where we know what the real problem is, but we don't go back to fix it. And we end up with even deeper problems and issues. And a classic example of that is what's happening in India at the moment in the north of India. Goes back to the partition with India and the British, and then Pakistan and India, and quick fix is being done to the constitution that we're paying the price for now. We try and feed the homeless, and what we're doing there is we're putting a quick fix in, and then no one back fix the real problem. What happens? We get side issues happening. We get problems with corruption playing in, mafia swarming up. And there's a whole heap of these systems thinking archetypes that help us deal with the situation. And as we go through the sessions today, and there'll be focused areas that will look at this, but think about the situation we're in right now, and think about what quick fixes might have been implemented in dealing with the COVID situation that we're dealing with, and what side effects or unintended consequences could follow as a result of that, and what we might be actually seeing already happening. And are we actually understanding and fixing the root causes of what actually led to the situation we're in? And we've got a number of sessions that go through this week that will help focus on those areas and in the application of systems thinking and systems engineering in general. And SESA at the end of the day is here to foster that concept, to grow the understanding. For those of you who don't already know, it's just a quick recap. So SESA is the Technical Society of Engineers Australia, and it's the local chapter or the regional chapter of INCOSE. And just as INCOSE has got 30 years up its sleeve, this is SESA's 25th year, and Kerry and Bill will both come back to that. The framework that we have in place is we have a memorandum of understanding between Engineers Australia and INCOSE and SESA that essentially set up the agency that is SESA, or the body that is SESA, with the purpose to foster the definition, understanding, the practice and advancement of systems engineering in Australian industry, academia and government. And how we do that really is through our memberships and through a whole series of, for want of a better term, events or objects that we produce or deliver to the membership, such as the National Speaker Program, the city conferences, and I've got in brackets IPEC, I'll come back to that, the Australian Systems Engineering Workshop, working groups, a whole series of those, masterclasses, forums, and the professional certification, the Australian Systems Engineering certification element of it. There is a management committee that implements that, and there's that management committee is right in the process right now of being reformed. And Bill might touch on that. You'll hear about that very shortly as we move forward. So that's, I guess, a slide on a page that says what SESA is, how it works, and what it does. I'll go very quickly through a slide that a lot of you have probably seen before as part of the NSPs, which gives us the yearly cycle of SESA events. And the last one that just happened was the NSP on the 26th of May. There are 4 National Speaker Program sessions through the year, spread out as shown. What we're looking at right now is the VSFs, which we've introduced into that mix, the virtual systems forums that are happening this week and next week. The next activity that's coming up that's SESA related is the INCOSE IS, a virtual event this year. And Kerry will probably touch on that as well, 20th, 22nd of July. We follow that up with ASEW in October. That's still planned to happen, whether it'll be virtual or if physical is something that we obviously will depend on the COVID situation, but we're working towards that with EA. We've got the IW following on January. Again, whether that's virtual or physical will depend on the situation. And then we have SETI 2021, which we've rebadged or will rebadge this year as part of a greater context called IPEC, the Integrated Project Engineering Congress. So this is an initiative from a number of perspectives that is looking to consolidate like-minded bodies and agencies to come together in a joint Congress while allowing for individual elements to actually do their own thing as well. So it's the Project Engineering Leadership and Management College, the Project Cost and Control Risk Management Agency, Asset Management, and SESA coming together through Engineers Australia to deliver a joint event. And the work in that phase is actually forming pretty strongly. We've got a structural happening, and we've got a set of themes happening, and more on that shortly. We also have a number of working groups that exist in the region, in Australia in particular, and in the bottom left of the screen, you see the specific ones that are very active and meet very regularly. Telecoms, critical infrastructure, human systems integration, kicking off, transport, both in Victoria and New South Wales have been starting to, New South Wales is coming back into it. And healthcare is starting to form. It's taking a bit of a focus and attention that we would need to give, and we've got a workshop scheduled around that. And we have the PMSE integration. We have SESA communications happening through the SESA website, SESA LinkedIn, and it's something, it's an evolving work in progress, and you should have seen some improvements in the recent SESA website. Moving on to the VSFs. So we structured this in 3 broad streams of activities. So morning virtual systems forums, which are focused around systems thinking and roundtable type discussions. Chris Brown will be leading, and these are the topics, and these are also on the website. Then we have midday sessions, which are presentation sessions focused around papers and presentations, building on the work that was submitted for the SETI conference and evolving that to allow for them to be shared. And in the evening, we have panel forum discussions around a number of topics, and you see those over there. All of this stuff is now on the SESA website as well if you want to look. A quick look at the actual detail of what happens in the midday sessions. And so the midday sessions, Wednesday, Thursday this week, and Tuesday, Wednesday next week, are broken up into a series of 4 presentations. Each presenter gets basically 15 minutes to speak. Then there's a 4-minute question and answer time period in the budget. And we have a buffer of about 4 minutes at the end of it, just in case, to cater for things. In terms of the actual presentations themselves, again, these are now on the SESA website. We have the 4 presentations for each day listed in the order noted. And again, any questions on that, come back to myself or look at the SESA website if you've got any questions on that. So that's pretty much what I had to cover. If you've got any questions, hold them. We'll come back to them. I'll give you the idea of what SESA is about, the VSFs, and program that we put together. I will now stop sharing screens and get Kerry to jump on and get her presentation going, and listen to what Kerry's going to do about where we're heading. So Kerry, while you're putting you up, I'm going to do a big quick introduction to Kerry, not that she needs one. So if Kerry will start sharing screen. So Kerry is Country Engineering Director and Chief Engineer at TELUS Australia. She's also, as most of you know, the President of INCOSE, just coming into the role. Bit of a bummer about the COVID situation, which but as you've seen, she's been very active in that space dealing with it. She holds ESEP qualification, has extensive experience developing and delivering ride system solution, and pretty much has worked across the board into anything you want to name, from ICT to gaming to financial, transport, aerospace, defense, in Australia, Asia, and USA. The system she's been involved with: combat, defense, mission systems, communication systems, road, rail, flight simulator, security systems, vehicle electronic control, gaming systems, across the gamut. She's a fellow of the Engineers Australia with the status of engineering executive and chartered professional engineer, is a member of IEEE, and is someone that I've looked to for a long time and absolutely admire the effort and work that Kerry does. So thank you, Kerry, for making time to fit this in. Over to you.
Hi, I'm assuming everyone can hear me and you can see the title page. Sorry for flicking around. I had a bit of difficulty between the mouse and the pointer. So I will go quite quickly through the first dozen slides. It's to give you some currency and footprint of INCOSE and where SESA sits in INCOSE, and then and move more onto the future. So let's start now. So if you're not aware of what INCOSE is all about, the thing to remember is our vision. It's a better world through a systems approach, and that cannot resonate any more than what it does between what's happening with the world being turned on its head this year with bushfires, COVID, racism, and so forth. So it's something that we're aspiring to, and we endeavour to meet that. Now, how do we do that? We can't do that separately. It's a collective group. You can learn more about it at the website, and that website's given down below. But just to give you some quick stats, we're near 18,000 members. Last time I looked, we're at 17,937. Pretty close. 66 chartered chapters, 8 emerging chapters. Emerging chapters are yet to be recognised fully as a chapter, and those emerging chapters are predominantly in Africa, parts of Asia, New Zealand, Chile, Argentina. So a few areas around. Mexico is another one. We've got 52 countries represented across the 18,000 members, and we've got 27 countries that have chapters in it. We also have corporate advisory board members, which includes academia, industry, and government. And we're sitting at 118 signed with 5 under negotiations. And so it's around about 120. And we have many alliances, more than 30 around the globe, which I'll talk about a little bit more. We've actually got 5 value streams, which I'll go through quite quickly. The first one's education and training. And this is what we can provide both in person and online through courses, and to give us those professional skills and knowledge that we need relevant to systems engineers. We hold events. They're at the regional level, the international level, the local level, the sector level, and we actually can do that by ourselves or in collaboration with our alliances. We also produce products and publications. There's a portfolio of books, papers, videos, webinars, standards, and so on. And we can either produce them directly ourselves or with collaboration with our alliances. We have an internationally recognized certification program. It gives you certification at 3 different levels. And that's actually getting quite strong and growing more and more every day. And I'll talk about that a little bit further along. And of course, we wouldn't be here without our members. And that gives us our aggregated intellectual capital by working together that you wouldn't get singularly or just staying within your own region sector. So really a good collaborative arrangement internationally. And we look to see what we can do to provide value, engage our members and retain our members. So they're basically our 5 value streams. Now, how our focus on those is we have 3 strategic objectives, and these helps our value streams hope to focus and guide our advancement. And what are our 3 strategic objectives? Well, the first one, number 1, the premier, and I'm sure you can guess what that is. We want to be the place that people go to when they want to know what systems engineering is about and what do I need to do to go down that professional path. They want to come to INCOSE. Okay, when I say INCOSE, recognize that SESA is our local chapter of INCOSE. So when I'm saying INCOSE, I'm including SESA going forward. Of course, the future, we want to be shaping it. We don't want to just be reactive. Okay, everything can be related. If you want to be quite broad to a system, let's get quite what would I call it, pragmatic about that. And not everything we're going to say is going to be a systems, but you know, things are getting more and more connected, interactions, interoperability, systems of systems, so on and so forth. So, you know, we want to be, what's that going to be all about? And then when I'm talking the future, I'm talking about embracing new technology, working with new technology, looking for the disruptive technologies. And I'll focus the second half of this presentation more in this area. And of course, at the end of the day, none of this will work if we don't bring value to our growing and increasingly diverse membership. INCOSE gets value, we want to provide value. So how do we look at that from our reach? So our inward reach is INCOSE, formed in 1990. It's our 30th anniversary. Internationally, INCOSE was in 1995. In 1990, it was a National Council of Systems Engineering, US based, okay? Became international in 1995, and that's where we are now. But SESA came along also in 1995 officially, and I'll walk you through how that happened a little bit further on. So we've been there for pretty much at the beginning. The only other country outside of the US celebrated their 25th last year, which was the UK. So we were number 2. Okay, recognized in 1995. However, it took us to 2012 to get officially signed, and I'll explain that a little bit. Now, as we went into the international path, then, you know, we truly are a global organization. So we had to look at the cultures, the demographics. What's the voice? What's the voice for outside of the US? So what INCOSE did, they split the world up into 3 geographical areas, which you can see on the right-hand side. And the sector 1 is what we refer to as the Americas. Sector 2 is what we refer to as EMEA, which stands for Europe, Middle East and Africa. And sector 3 is Asia Oceania. So we've got quite diversity there, and that is our membership numbers. Now you can see that that number in total is way less than 18,000. It's just underneath 11,000. The difference with that is that difference is associate members, which I will talk about when I get to the corporate advisory board. But what you're seeing here, these are individual members that can vote for INCOSE. Now, have a look at SESA. SESA is in sector 3. We're more than 50% of the numbers in Asia Oceania. And by the way, sector 3 is the fastest growing sector at the moment, based on percentages. We are the smallest in number, but percentage wise, that figure has doubled in the last 5 years. Okay, so that's been really good. Most of that growth has been out of Australia. We have had growth in Australia, don't get me wrong, but we're seeing the jumps predominantly in India and China. We are the 5th largest chapter of INCOSE, which is quite brilliant. It oscillates between the UK and France, who is the largest, but generally it's the UK, France, Germany, Washington Metro, which means the Washington DC area, Australia, and I think right behind us is Los Angeles area. So we have a strong voice, and we can actually do more in getting incorporated and involved with INCOSE. I've talked about corporate advisory board. We're not strong in Australia in this. This is where we give voice to organizations, and an organization can sign up so they can help to advise what they would like INCOSE to focus on, influence what we'd like. They're a pool of resources that we can draw on, and also we offer them a pool of resources that they can draw on. So what happens is that the corporate advisory boards, of which there's around about 120 organizations, they could be anything defense, like my own company, Thales, British Aerospace or BAE, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, right down to we have medical companies, consulting, a number of universities, and smaller organizations that are more commercial in the telecommunications area. So it's getting quite diverse, but they did start fairly strong in defense and aerospace. So these groups get together, they meet regularly, they decide what their needs are. As an organization, what are their needs that they hope that INCOSE can fulfill? And so we run this cycle of needs analysis with them, and it goes through a 2-year cycle, and it could end up creating working groups. It's actually, in a couple of cases, was the catalyst for us to produce a few of our primers, which you can see on our product store. So we do work hand in hand with this collaboration. So you can see these are the numbers at the moment for our CAB members, but it's pretty dismal in Australia. We have one government member, which is the Department of Defence Acquisition, CASG. I don't know if they'll be renewing going forward. They're due about now. And the second one was Academia, and that is the University of New South Wales. Okay, so we can do more in this area. But you'll see that the associate members, as a corporate advisory board, depending on your level of membership, you're entitled to so many associate members, which can access about 80 to 90% of the benefits of an individual member. You can see that the number is much higher there, which means that we do have associate members from organizations that are represented worldwide. I'll give you an example. Thales, as I said, my organization is a corporate advisory board member, but it's not recognized under Australia as it's recognized through France, but anyone in Thales worldwide can be an associate member because of that. So that's why the numbers are a bit high on the associate members, where the actual corporate advisory board organization is recognized. So I'll move on a little bit from that. Student divisions. This is where we like to focus on our undergraduates or graduate students who wish to become actively involved in INCOSE. They think differently, what their needs are differently. So it really makes sense that they're a subgroup of a local or nearby chapter. So when a student division is created, we look for a faculty member to help with that. But it's interesting to note, these have only kicked off in the Americas. They've actually, although they've been around for a long time, Sector 2 and Sector 3, there aren't any. And so that might be an opportunity there at different universities for outreach to look at the student division. Obviously, we want to take the student individuals, and when they actually graduate and aren't students anymore, we'd like to make them regular members. So, so there's a bit of area that we can do there overall for INCOSE. Our technical programs, we run a technical operations team. We have a number of working groups. At the moment, there's around 53 working groups, and that looking for producing product or output. So they may focus on a particular topic And I'll talk about that a little bit further going on. And this is a great opportunity that you can get involved in. And these are the areas, just as JB has mentioned some of them, here are some of them that we focused in. In fact, we started off the model-based concept design one. At the moment, the leads for the telecommunications are two SESA representatives, John and Dan. So we're quite strong. Requirements, Mike Ryan, if anyone knows him, has been heavily involved from day dot with writing and supporting the requirements working group. We have certification, and certification, as I mentioned, we have 3 levels there. And if you're interested in that, we can give you more detail, but it's fully recognized international program. But there is another path. In fact, there's 2 paths. This first path is certification academic equivalency, where we've actually got 9 universities signed up that we've looked at their curriculum. It actually balances to what we require of a certification level. So if an individual completes that subject successfully and becomes a member of INCOSE, they can get this certification at the ACEP level. So, and University of New South Wales has signed a MOU on this level. Here's our certification numbers. We're not doing great in Australia. We can do better. There's 5 ESEPs out of 319. And if you consider we are the 5th largest chapter, which means 5th largest regular members, you would expect to have a lot more than what we've got, 70 SEPs and 57 ASEPs. So we have got a 3rd path of joining, which is through CASE, the Chartered Australian Systems Engineering Program. It's a mutual recognition between Engineers Australia and INCOSE. You can go down that path, or you can go direct through the certification, or direct through the academic equivalency if you're a student. And just something to point out that SESA representatives are really working at the international level. It's not just me. Charles Holmes is actually the chair of the certification advisory group, and he's that for the next year or 2. So it's good to see. On the events and technical leadership side, on the events you've mentioned, and JB's gone through a lot of them, so I would just skip to go down to, we're offering 2 new styles of events in the last couple of weeks, and the second round happens this week, which is those community offerings. They're free, they're available to members and non-members, the webinar showcases and the systems exchange cafes. And that's a good one where people of like minds get together and we talk on a general topic for an hour. So it's really good to get involved, and it's in all around the world, different time zones to support that. And if you're running your own events, we have the tools to help you with that. The second one is the Technical Leadership Institute. Now, this has actually changed as of this year to be a fully online experience. So it's a blend of synchronous online learning and asynchronous team collaborations. 2 years. We do recommend that you come to IW&IS, where there will be face-to-face sessions for your cohort, but if you can't make those, you can do those remotely. SESA has had a representative in there, or someone from Australia has been in every cohort, and we're up to cohort 6, which will start next week or the week after, 2 weeks time, beginning of July. So that's really good. And on the event side, SESA itself has hosted both the 2001 in Melbourne and the 2017 in Adelaide, both highly successful events. Industry outreach. This is when we look for collaboration with different external partners, and you can see that this is an ongoing basis. And at the moment, we're talking with the Simulation Australasia. The chair of that is Phil Swadling, to actually see maybe there's a collaboration there. But most of these collaborations are at the international level. And you can see going forward, this is what we refer to our alliances. We need to work more and more together with alliance. It's not a single perspective going forward. We don't work in isolation. It's very collaborative. On the professional side, we've got our Systems Engineering Competency Framework. We have our System Engineering Education Ecosystem initiative starting up. There is this certification I've already mentioned, and you can see different professional development activities. We are focusing on the moment on the professional development portal. So within 12 months, expect to see a professional development portal, which means anyone can log in. You'll answer a number of questions. Basing on your answers, you'll be recommended to consider these courses, get this training, read this textbook, go watch this video. It's not necessarily INCOSE only material. It could very well be other third parties that we recommend, or our own material. So that's going to be good to see. And in that professional development portal, the idea is that you can drop in and out of that over time, put in more of your qualifications and experience, and it will direct you to where you might consider to go next. So I'd just like to go quickly through the SESA and INCOSE journey, because it gets a bit confusing for some people. And funnily enough, there's a few of us that are still around right from the beginning. 1990, INCOSE started. Australia had interest in the last quarter of 1994, meeting in Canberra with Bill Parkins and others were there. My boss came back, and in 95, I said, hey, Kerry, put on a conference and see if you can raise membership for this. And we didn't even have a name then. It wasn't even called SESA. It came about during that conference. So that was my first exposure to my boss saying, make it happen, when I was working for Boeing. Of course, we looked to see how could we join INCOSE, but they weren't ready for us. They did not have a federated model. So we continued on locally, but kept our eyes and ears open and worked with INCOSE informally, but we weren't signed up. We were selected in 99 to host the conference. We hosted the conference in 2001. In 2007, we resurrected discussions with INCOSE to actually get signed up, because now they were getting serious in a federated model. And we also had planned the first national workshop in 2007. In 2010, we got our first ESEP awarded, and that happened to be me, coincidentally. In 2012, we had our first fellow recognized, which was Steve Cook. And also in 2012, we actually got our MOU signed with INCOSE and Engineers Australia. And now we were officially, or formally, I should say, the chapter of INCOSE, but we had been recognized right from the beginning. It also meant too that there was an offshoot of an INCOSE Australia chapter, and that was merged with SESA, SESA being the larger of the two groups. So officially then, 2014, we had our first national workshop, which became ASEW. We then hit the international level from a board area, and the Sector 3 director came from SESA. Again, that was myself. And the region became known as Asia Oceania Systems Engineering Conference for regions, versus which was Asia Pacific Conference, which was not part of INCOSE, but it now is all part of it. 2017, SESA introduced the National Speakers Program, and we got our second fellow, Mike Ryan. And in 2018, we've got that certification approach through CASE was signed, and I became the president-elect, and now the president, and our virtual forums have started. So that's a really quick roadmap of how we've got there. But I'm sure you can ask a number of people who've been around for a while, how did it all happen? So what I want to look at now, noting the time, and I am running late, correct, is what's next? What's in the next 25 years? That's the last 25 years. So I asked my little lady here, and who is a citizen of Saudi Arabia. You might recognize her, but we'll move on. We had this great document already, the SE Vision 2025. Well, that's just around the corner. It's available. Please help yourself to that. It's on our website, and we've recognized it needs to move forward. We're working on a 2035. It will be released at IW 2022, but it is a vision. This is what we think is going to happen. This is what you need to be aware of, so on and so forth. It doesn't help you that much. Well, what are we going to do about that? That's where this initiative has come into, Future of Systems Engineering. And we have a few SESA representatives on this working group. And this working group has, or this initiative, I should say, has already initiated a number of working groups. So there's a new working group for artificial intelligence. We're actually going to keep going on this horizon scanning every 6 months of what's out there in the future. The foundations of systems engineering is quite heavily involved in this. We've got another project which our fellows are working on, which was systems engineering heuristics for the future. But let's just say that also this is a collaboration. INCOSE is, although leading it, these number of organizations, which you can see in the center of the screen, are all represented on this FUSE, the Future of Systems Engineering. So watch this space. Now, what I'm showing here, these are a number of the technical working groups of INCOSE. And with the green tick, this is where the future of systems engineering is actually got activities happening in there. So in artificial intelligence, complex systems, agility, system sciences, the security areas, the practitioner magazines, as articles have been written and so forth. So this is really, really a strong area, and it's going to morph a lot of activities over the next few years that you could be interested in. Some examples are in the digital engineering space, our transformation with model-based engineering, our digital engineering information exchange working group, and they're working on a model and are going to put a primer out. On the bottom left, we've got a collaboration with NAFEMS, which is strong in system modeling and simulation. So between our system modeling approaches and simulation, we're working with NAFEMS with there. And then you can see our transformation, not in just the models, but in the patterns. And let's look at it. Going forward, we're going to need patterns and anti-patterns. We need to work quite well and understand them, because these things are just going to grow, and we can look at that for reuse, to use, or to avoid. If you think of systems as systems as a transformation activity, we've launched a primer in 2018 where we're actually working on the system of systems standards. There's roundtables and research happening in this area. Again, looking very strong as where we go, where do we want to be part of the future? So where can you get involved? Every one of us here, we could be part of a chapter, and that's be strong and part of SESA. You can also look at it, join a working group. Look for interaction with diverse groups, be part of the future. We can also volunteer. Now, if you're not aware, on the INCOSE site, there's a volunteer opportunity board. Have a look to see what's available. And also, if there's nothing available but you want to volunteer, it allows you to enter and put your name in, and we'll find it, because I can tell you now, we've got more vacancies than what we have volunteers. And you can volunteer for an activity. It could be 3 weeks, it could be 3 months, it could be 2 years. It just depends what you're interested in. We've also got a number of events at the international level, regional level, and local level. And you can see them there represented from our sector. We also have mentioned the training and education. We'll have the professional development portal. We've got the competency framework. We've got webinars and tutorials. We've also kicked off special projects and grand challenges. There's sustainability. We've got smart cities and a number one of those. And I think there's another one, a task group ticking off on diversity and inclusion. Articles. Everyone can write a blog. Everyone can take a photo. Is someone taking a photo of what they're seeing now? And you could put that in a newsletter. You can write an article for our Insight magazine, which is the practitioners magazine, and we get e-notes out all the time. The community offerings. This is a virtual community of, I said, webinars and cafes. They've just kicked off. Join them at any time. They're only for an hour. Listen, participate, no prep required. Certification we've talked about, and you may want your organization to sign up as a corporate advisory board member. But that's specifically for what we're doing now and in the next 5 years. But let's take it 25 years further, 2045 horizon. These are all possibilities of what will be available in the year 2045. Now think about it, driverless cars won't be no such things, they'll just be cars. We could have 3D printed houses for government initiative. Think about that. The one that I love is the brain print. And the brain print won't be able to be replicated. And what they mean by brain print, apparently and there's research happening now, how your brain reacts to certain images can be repeated, but it will change depending on the image. So the idea being, if you want to go into a facility, if you want to unlock something, think of the image, it will give you a brain print, they'll match that, and in you go. So, you know, pretty secure. So that's all quite exciting. So how are we going to make that happen? Where's INCOSE going to be? Well, think of it from practicing systems engineering versus doing the research. On the left-hand side is pretty much where we're going to be. Situational awarenesses will be critical. Why is that? You're working with intelligence augmentation, or actually whether it's augmented or it's actually the full singularity, we'll wait to see. But the fact is, the decisions are going to be made. They're going to be taken out of the human in the loop. In some cases, that's only going to be as good as the situational awareness that we make for those decisions to be made. Going to be critical going forward. The other one, the third one, utilization of knowledge-based expert libraries via subscriptions. My own feeling is the World Wide Web as we know will not exist. Okay, you can see it already crumbling in now 5-10 years time. Not saying it's going to go away, but what you're going to do, you're going to be more along the lines of the security side takes over. So you will subscribe to certain things, or you have this known fingerprint, brain print, whatever it is, versus it being so public. You know, if you don't fit into, I'm not allowing you to be part of my web, go away. It's going to be more along those lines going forward. And then if you move down, resilience, at the moment, we always say safety, security, human factors, they're expected whether they're spelled out in a contract or not. Well, environmental sustainability, resilience, they're going to be the same. It's not going to be spelled out, it's going to be expected. And of course, information rules. That doesn't mean we throw away everything we've got now, but we could modify it, we could keep it, and new stuff. We're going to have life cycle models. There are going to be some new ones, you bet your bottom dollar. As there always are new ones over the first few years, they're relationships. The relationships change. You're always going to have stakeholder engagement, risk activities. You've got to have good architectures no matter what you follow at the end of the day. So that was the practicing systems engineering. Now, if you look at the research, well, the easiest way to explain where I think the research is going is we're in the 4th industrial revolution right now. We've been in it for close to 10 years. They reckon it's got about another 20 years to go. So in 25 years, we should be looking back at the 4th industrial revolution. So all I did was change the tense on the statement. Did we manage to fuse the physical, the digital, and the biological worlds, you know, impacting all the disciplines, economies, and industries, and challenging what it means to be human? Now, if you think of that, then what's likely to be the research area that we'll be focusing in the 25 years? Obviously, the impact of singularity, groupthink and AI, obviously, human-robotic interactions, interrelationships between sustainability challenges, because it's all connected, not divorced. So, you know, if you think about those things, that's quite impressive. Of course, now INCOSE itself, on the inward side, it's more of a collaboration, and it's going to be stronger. I've already mentioned that on the INCOSE side, we're working on a 2035 vision. So we're going to have another vision. What's it going to look like at 2060 going forward from 2045? And just briefly on the right-hand side, it's really, we're going to shape change. We want to strengthen collaboration, but the third one, harmonizing people and technology. We will have robotics, we'll have cyborgs, we'll have things like along those lines or heading down that path. People got to get comfortable with technology at all levels of demographics, all levels of education, okay, of skills and knowledge. And then of course the bottom one, we want to sustain our world as we would like it. You know, we can't afford these bushfires, famines, pollutions, all sorts of things. And of course, it's been said that in 2044 they'll be back on the moon, and China and that's the US, and China and Russia have said that they will actually have a moon base or a station of some sort in the next 12 to 15 years on the moon. So if you want to take it forward, here we come, Galactica, Star Trek, etc. We will look towards colonization, being the moon being a jumping point. And so what does that mean for INCOSE? Perhaps we'll have a 4th sector a little moon popping up on our logo. But the thing is, your systems, guys, if you're at the start of your career, it's huge. You're going to be in demand. You do not want to miss out on this journey. And we can help you with that as being part of INCOSE. But just for now, just let you know that the International Symposium is in 3 weeks' time or 4 weeks' time. It's fully virtual from the 20th to the 22nd of July for us. It's a lot of nighttime activity to fit in with the time zones of the rest of the world, but it's all going to be recorded. So if you've registered, you will get all the recordings, whether you could attend in person or not. And the difference too, it's actually an event. So it's not that you're just sitting here and listening like you are in a meeting. There is going to be an exhibit hall with the sponsors. You will have cafes to go in and talk to people. There will be question and answer time with each session, and also the ability to ask questions and answers up to 2 weeks after. So we're really putting a lot of work into making this happen. And the next workshop, first time outside of the US, it's always at the end of January, is in Seville, Spain. At the moment, it's a hybrid. Why I say a hybrid? Going forward, all our events will have a virtual element to it, a remote participation. It's just to how much it will have depends on circumstances. So fingers crossed we can get to Spain in January. Otherwise, it will be a fully virtual event. But I'd like just to conclude and say happy 25th anniversary, SESA. SESA's existed through collaborations of individuals, groups, and companies. We've had a lot of recognition with different awards, and it's been fun along the way. You can see the camaraderie with the various photos. And if you're just wondering why some people are dressed up like Steve Cook as Captain Cook, and there's vision in different dress-ups, at the 2001 symposium, the organizing committee is the icebreaker to welcome everybody dressed up as Aussie icons. You know, we do these things and make them quite memorable. On that note, that's the end of my presentation.
Thanks, Gary. Well done. Can you hear me?
Yes. Should I unshare?
Yes, please. You actually did an amazing job with time, Gary. Perfect. Well done. You got through a heck of a lot, but thank you. So get the questions happening, but save them. I'm going to sort of hand over to Bill now. So Bill, if you would like to sort of to get the screen share happening. Again, most of you, just as you know, Gary, you probably know Bill. Bill is the current president of SESA. He's been a long-standing proponent of systems engineering, systems thinking, specialist in the comms, electronic systems, and has most of his career primarily has been on defense and in defense projects. So Bill, over to you, man. Thanks, and tell us about SESA.
Okay, thanks, JB. Can you hear me okay?
Indeed. Do you want to go into presentation mode though, Bill? Just to, I think you've still got it in.
I've got the wrong screen, sorry.
Yeah.
Let's try that again.
Sure.
What about that?
Got it. Well done. Okay, Bill, all to you.
Okay, so get going here. Quick update. Really, Kerry's done a great summary of INCOSE overall and covered a lot of the things that SESA's doing. So I'll just do a quick supplementary on that. As JB mentioned, we've got two parent organisations, the INCOSE and Engineers Australia. So I'll skim over the INCOSE bit because Kerry's covered that very well. SESA does support attendance at the international events, ISOW and AOSEC, the sector conference, most recently in Bangalore, and the next ones are going to be in Australia in 2021 in conjunction with SETI. Technical working groups covered. We get involved in CSEP application reviews, and we get involved in the sector meetings, business meetings, which tends to be the way we communicate. sorry about that. Engineers Australia, hang on here. Engineers Australia, we've got a lot of involvement with Engineers Australia as well. We liaise with other technical societies. We get involved in at the state and territory level in EA divisions, engineering practice forums. There are CPD events from other parts of Engineers Australia which are relevant to system engineers in their career development. And we also get involved in assessment of charter professional engineers in systems engineering, which is another charter which is more of local relevance than the international CSEP. But we're, as Kerry mentioned, the CASE program, we're working on equivalence and trying to bring the two things together. And one way we do that is to get involved in the CPN-SE assessments. So SESA 25th anniversary, Kerry mentioned that we were going to have a series of celebrations during the year, but of course COVID put that on hold. But we're going to do some a website, commemorative website a bit further on what Kerry did on her sort of timeline. We're going to work on that with some photos and videos and artifacts so people can go back and have a look at that and see what's happened with SESA over time. So on the leadership thing, I just wanted to mention that there's been a lot of leadership very successfully over the 25 years. Presidents and secretaries and other committee members in particular have made a very strong chapter. Kerry mentioned the number, over 670 current members. We've got a good, strong financial position and a good technical program. State and territory networking meetings. We rotate things around the states and territories where possible to give everybody a turn and keep the locals active and involved. Early career system engineering. We're initiating a coaching and mentoring program. Not really a subset of the one Kerry mentioned under the student chapters, but it's related to it, and given Kerry's prompt that we should be looking more at the student chapters, we'll have a bit more of a look at that going forward. TLI program, Kerry also mentioned, we do have two current, or two members on cohort 6, which is about to start in July. Technical program, JB covered that right at the front, so I won't go over the details there. You know, SETI, ASCW and NSP key events that JB manages very well. So the handover takeover, the management committee changes over on the 1st of July. John Nasser relieves me as SESA president, and he's actually moving the structure of the organising committee to more focus on domains rather than just primarily on states and territories. So defence and aerospace, transportation, cities, telecom, cyber, and several other emerging domains are going to have leaders at the national level, and they will organise the local events in conjunction with the tech director. Finally, I just wanted to reinforce that SETI 2021 is going to happen. We had to defer SETI 2020. So what we're working with within Engineers Australia and other societies on a integrated project engineering congress in Brisbane in May. So the Congress will have several participating conferences, including SETI, the Risk and Project Controls Conference, and the other people, the other organisations that are involved at the moment are Asset Management and the College of Leadership and Management. But we are also reaching out to CMOS, RTSA, ASPE, and the Industrial Engineering Society. So if they're aware of other people that are would like to get involved, even just participate, we'd be only too happy to reach out to those. So that's a big initiative that we've been working on. So I know questions are at the end, so I'll stop sharing and pass back to JB and get ready for question time.
Excellent. Thanks, Bill. That was well covered. We're actually pretty well on the dot almost in terms of time, so that's absolutely brilliant. There's systems engineering for you. Okay, so really this is now time for an open discussion forum to talk about any questions that we might have, both Kerry's presentation, Bill's presentation, as well as if you've got general ones from a SESA perspective in terms of events. So get those questions in. We have an initial question, and probably more for Kerry, but happy Bill to jump in as well, from Grace. Grace, I could read it out, but do you want to, if you got audio, do you want to just ask your question?
Hi, can you hear me?
Indeed.
Okay, great. So I was wondering, we have a very low percentage of CSEPs and ASEPs and ESEPs in Australia in our chapter. How do we go about increasing this?
So Kerry, do you want to?
Yeah, there can be a number of ways. First of all, just if people are even aware of it. Second is then it comes down to what the definition of systems. What do you recognize as systems? And there's a lot of people that could actually go for it, but don't believe they're actually even operating or working in the field of systems engineering. And that's not true. My ICT colleagues, business analysts, architects, etc., depending on what level of they're working at, software, hardware, systems, etc. So from that perspective, the other one is the universities. As I said, the University of New South Wales, pretty much it's the ACT branch under Mike Ryan, has actually got an equivalency. So if those students go through that course and wish to get their qualification, they then become a member of INCOSE, have to pass that course, and they get their ASEP. So there's a number of activities like that. The other one is some of the larger organizations. My own company, Talus, and a few others have a memorandum of understanding direct with INCOSE that we will actually help promote it and do the first round of reviews for INCOSE before we submit the applications, and in turn there's a recognition given for that. From an industry perspective, once you explain to people what it's about, they get interested. It's just they didn't know it was there in the first place.
Excellent.
I've got a couple of things to add to that. Thanks, Kerry. I would say, Grace, what all members should be doing, especially the people that have been in the society for a long period and know how it works. If you see people that are candidates for CSEP that aren't actually involved in the program, encourage them. And if you think they already meet the requirements for ESEP, by all means, get them involved in the program. I think we've all got to work on that. Kerry's point about the equivalency, I know South Australia, University of South Australia are also starting a Master of Defence System Integration, which I'm sure the leaders there, David Cropperly and so, would be looking at getting that qualified as well. So we're not just a single university in Australia. So I think with just an awareness, making people aware of what's going on is what I'd suggest we've got to do.
Excellent. Thanks, Bill. Anyone else got any questions? I had one that more curiosity, Kerry, on slide 15 in your preso, you sort of said something, and then you said we'll come back to it if there's you had the graphic on slide 15. If you just jump to slide 15 with your preso, what was that? Do you want to expand on that a bit?
Yeah, I've forgotten her name. Wait, let me get back to the slide. So yeah. This is the, I won't put it in slide mode. Sorry, slideshow. That's the slide?
Yes, that's the one. That's the one. Yep.
Do you remember it was in 2016, 2015 name? I was going to say Siri, but it's not Siri. I'll have to look it up. But she was the first robotic that could actually answer and had some level of intelligence. And she traveled the world and got a passport from Saudi Arabia. This is, they had her in India too. At a conference. We brought her to Australia. Oh, actually, we had her on a panel remotely for us in Australia at Engineers Australia a couple of years ago. Gosh, it'll come to me the name in a minute, but can anyone remember the name?
Bill Scott has suggested Sophia.
Sophia, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that was it. So, you know, I was looking, I got that inspiration from, if you ever saw Back to the Future, the second one with Michael Fox talking to his crazy friend, and you know, they were looking forward though going backwards, and that's what I was paralleling that up.
Good, excellent. Thanks, Kerry. Another question I sort of had, and this is more a general one for membership, SESA membership versus INCOSE membership. And the pros and cons of going either way. Did you want to comment on that, Kerry, or Bill, either of you or anyone else? Yeah.
What do you mean by SESA membership?
As in the benefits of SESA membership as opposed to just being a direct member of INCOSE.
Oh, okie dokie. Well, you don't want to do that. First of all, if you don't sign up to a chapter in INCOSE, which you can, you're classed as a member at large, which means then you miss out on any information that might be going to a chapter that you're nearby that you could participate in, because we don't know you're there. Okay. With all the data general privacy regulations, we can't share information without you giving approval for those sorts of things. So the idea is sign up to a chapter, then you get information on what's happening locally. They might have their own newsletter, they might have their own meetings, their own events, own working groups, in addition to the international element. And that's really what you get. So you're getting the benefit of both things, two worlds. Yeah.
And a supplementary question to that probably is why be a member of EA as well as INCOSE? So obviously becoming a member of SESA makes you a member of Australia chapter of INCOSE, but Engineers Australia are reviewing how they work and what the roles of the technical societies and colleges are within Engineers Australia. So I do expect to see some changes there, because I know a lot of people don't see the value of you know, the price differential and all those sorts of things in being a EA member, but definitely being a SESA member and INCOSE member is almost a foundational thing as far as system engineers are concerned, as far as I've been.
Look, if there's changes to be made, then that's a whole different memorandum of agreement to be considered. That started in '95. It was because the National Council of Systems Engineering weren't set up yet to take in non-US organizations, and we were fledgling, and we thought, well, could we do it by ourselves? At that stage we thought no, and Engineers Australia looked good to be part of, although it took them 20 years to recognise systems. And even now it's still got a long way to go.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And in defence of the local professional organisations, I think it's implicit on us to try and work and get the two things connected. And I think Kerry and other presidents have worked on that, and we'll continue to look at that arrangement. But I agree, the MOU needs to be reevaluated if EA does change the role of the technical society.
Agree. I might come back to another question on that, but there's a question that's come up from Brendan Williams. Brendan, again, I can read it, or are you happy to actually vocally ask your question?
I'm happy to ask the question. No problem. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Kerry and Bill, and for the presentations today. I just asked a question. Look, I just state that my background is in transport infrastructure as an engineer and systems person, and therefore my interest is in the application of systems engineering in transport, which, based on what I can see as the history, that's a sort of an emerging field where systems engineering has come from defence and aerospace, etc. So given that there is many of us that can start to think and apply systems engineering in transport, is there in the education and training arena that you mentioned, is there a go-to course for this? That's something that SESA or INCOSE has or is developing? I know I've asked this in other forums, but I think it's something that a lot of us are interested in.
Yeah, well, I can have first go at that. I don't know if you're aware of the course that John Nasser has set up for Engineering Education Australia, EEA.
No.
He's delivered that to the transportation sector in New South Wales and Victoria, and it was very well received. It was it's a module that's, I believe, available through EEA.
Right, thank you for that.
The other one is just terminology, the basis of the word systems engineering and some of the practices, etc. Definitely defence and aerospace, but a lot were doing it without knowing they were doing it. And it's changing the not just terminology but ontology. And if we can get anybody to spend some decent time to get that sorted out, the world's your oyster. There's also the transportation working group, and I can't remember what they're focusing on at the moment. There could be something there as well, Brendan, I'm not sure.
Thank you for that, both of you. I was actually involved in the Transport Working Group in 2012, but it sort of faded off. I know it's come back again under, I think, Helen Williams, but I have to reconnect. But look, thank you both. I just see that as a really emerging space. And like you said, Kerry, I've been doing systems engineering and transport for 25 years. I just didn't realise it until 2012. And since then, I haven't really still just connected the dots together, and I think there's probably a lot of us in different spaces in engineering which could say the same.
Let me just also make it a little bit clear on the working groups. The working groups that I put up were at the international level, anyone can join. And what often happens then in a chapter, they have a particular problem or they've got a strong number, a large number of members in a particular discipline. And so they may end up leading that working group even though it's international, or they could take on a particular problem that feeds into the international working group. So there's working groups at the local level, and the worst thing you can do is keep that isolated. It needs to be dovetailed into the greater working group. You could have a particular problem to look after or to solve or even end up leading, but it shouldn't be isolated. You need to work with the larger group because they're always communicating. Otherwise, if you stay isolated, you do not know what all the other working groups are doing because they meet monthly to help each other out and collaborate.
Yeah, great. Excellent. Thank you.
And Brendan, I'll point you to the transport working groups in Victoria and New South Wales. New South Wales has kicked up again, as you pointed out. So, and they're really starting to build up a bit of momentum. So get in touch. And if you're looking for contacts, get back to me and I'll put you in touch. I'm sure you already know who we are, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Eugenia. Do you want to, you had your hand up, Eugenia. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question or
yep, sure. Can you guys hear me?
Indeed.
Okay, cool. I was hoping to ask about the certifications as well. So say for the university equivalent ones, are they only for university students, or say, for example, if we graduated from the University of New South Wales, within 5 years, can we go back to grab those certifications, or would you say focus on another one in the future?
No. You focus on the same qualification. Your path to get it is different. Okay, so
right.
if you already have 5 years out of university, you may already have up to 5 years worth of relevant experience. If that's the case, then you could go for a certified system engineering professional level. The university students, the best they can get is the associate systems engineering professional qualification, because they don't have the experience yet. They haven't shown competency yet. They've just shown that they've known the course material and passed the exam, basically.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kerry. Reza, did that answer your question, or do you want to follow up with the additional question to that?
No, that answers my question. Yep,
okay,
thank you.
Regina. And we had another one, a similar question from Reza Rudd. Are you there, Reza? Did you have it? Did that answer your question as well? Okay, great. Excellent. So I want to go back to the previous point, and I'm not intending to stir anything up over here, but just asking the question really is, given the context of SESA-INCOSE and systems engineering being a horizontal enabler, for want of a better way of looking at it, it's really about going across across technical disciplines and non-technical disciplines. Is there, in the context of the future of where we go from a SESA perspective, I'd like to get maybe Kerry's and Bill's thoughts on, given the fact that Engineers Australia is by definition a collection of vertical specializations, and SESA is horizontal, and if we really believe in the concept of systems going beyond just technological systems, is there a need to start looking broader, not to break any relationships, but to perhaps grow relationships? And in particular, I think we've all touched on this, and a personal passion of mine is the fact that modeling and simulation are fundamental enablers to systems engineering and to the whole engineering process. And for a long time, they were sort of pretty much silent in the concept of systems engineering. We're starting to see that more and more. But what are your thoughts, Kerry, on that in the longer term? Do you see an expansion of that formally? I know our MOU is coming up with EA shortly, or is this something that we're not quite ready for yet? And it'll probably
No, it's already happening or happened. Have you looked at the new systems engineering definition that was put out last year?
Yes, indeed. And it's a massive improvement over the last one, by the way. So, yes.
So the definition is systems engineering is a transdisciplinary and integrative approach to enable the successful realization, use and retirement of engineering systems using systems principles and concepts and scientific technology and management methods. But it's a transdisciplinary and integrative approach. That sums it up. And you wouldn't believe how much debate went on between using the word transdisciplinary versus interdisciplinary, because they are different. Yes. Okay, so transdisciplinary is you're going across them all. Okay, interdisciplinary is meshing them together, but you're not still necessarily going across them all in very layman's terms. So to answer your question, yes. If anything, you know, you're going to be a curator in some cases, you know, a jack of all trades, as I would say. You dabble in all areas, but need to know where to get the expertise. More and more simulation will be used. Okay, it's a fact. Augmented reality, virtual reality, you can't get past that. Whether you do simulation for the sake of it. Now, funnily enough, I'm giving a presentation with Phil Swaddling tomorrow morning, a webinar one on the marriage between modeling-based engineering and simulation. Okay, and we're using a hospital as a theme. The thing is, the model-based approach for engineering, the systems level, is got the breadth. You've got to decide where you're going to go down deep. If you go too far, you're creating stuff of no worth, and you can get bogged down and go broke. You won't finish your job. Okay. Simulation and the broad system level, we're looking at performance, we're looking at interfaces, we're looking at the data sharing and the security, it's the cyber and stuff like that. On the simulation side, you're very much looking at the realization, the detail of, I want it to behave the way it's going to behave as best as I can simulate it or stimulate it in some ways. And so they'll go in a lot more detail, but you can't have one without the other. And you've got to know when to do each, because as I said, you've got to create them, maintain them. You'll go bust if you're not careful, so on and so forth. Did that answer your question?
It did. And you touched on another point that's really fundamental, is that as we go in beyond this fourth industrial age, what's actually happening is that technology is moving so fast that the concept of managing stuff in silos is just not sustainable. The relationships and the interconnectivities are forcing interfaces that we never even thought of, and we're getting unintended consequences. And that aspect in itself is going to force the need for a transdisciplinary approach that recognizes those, and the need of modeling and simulation to allow for a discussion to be had at a non-technical level to understand conceptually what's going on, as opposed to relying on technical experts to tell us that this is how it has to be done. And how systems engineering will be the bringing together of those two aspects is going to be, it's almost a given. It has to happen in order to make the world, what it is in terms of, the pictures and the graphics and the thoughts that you put up. For example, on slide 23, Kerry, I thought that was really a pretty good summary, or highlighting some of the key areas over there, and how systems thinking, systems engineering, modeling and simulation will be foundational in those aspects. And the other element that I wanted perhaps get your thoughts on, and I know INCOSE is doing this work as well, and we're looking at it as well locally, is the human element of it, the human factors and the human systems integration, the social systems engineering. And the bringing in of that human element into this bigger picture construct. And slide 23 perhaps is a good place, if you've got that handy, to
Which one, sorry?
23 in your presentation.
Oh, you want me to put that up?
I think it'd be a good catalyst for some food for thought here. Yeah.
Let me just get backwards.
Yeah.
Oh, wrong one. Stop share. Got too many screens open, sorry. Just getting there.
Yeah.
Number 23, you said. That's the one?
That's the one, yes.
But the other one is to ask people, when they say digital twin, what do you mean? And that could be a model. It could be a simulation. It could be a combination of that. And a digital twin is, again, you're representing necessarily the functionality or capability. It may not necessarily be the look and the feel unless you are planning to do that. And it may not, and it most probably won't be everything, because again, you'll go broke. It's there to serve its purpose, to actually trial, allow you pilot things, to do the what ifs as quickly as you can in a safe, reproducible environment, and so on. But so there, yeah, these I think are all going to happen. The last one is a philosophical point, but we can talk about that separately.
Mm-hmm. No, it is. The point there is and the definition, the use of transdisciplinary is key, and the discipline of the profession is not just technical. It's beyond technical. It's across the board. It's any capability you think of that we can imagine even, and this slide sort of sums up a lot of those sorts of things. We have to apply systems thinking and the interdependence of all these things, the interoperability, the interconnectedness of it is going to be what drives it. It's not about individual silos, it's about how all this connects together, and how do we ensure things like safety, security, privacy, all of those aspects, and the human element in this construct. It's all the way through. It's every single one of these will have to have those considerations brought in, and systems engineering will be key. I think that's the challenge ahead of us and the opportunity is massive in that space. And it's great to see the stuff that you put together in INCOSE, thinking in where all this stuff is going. So I think that's absolutely, exciting, for want of a better term. It's also that we've got to stand up to the challenge because no one else will. It's systems thinkers, systems engineers that will be key to making this future, to realization of this future in a way that's safe, secure, effective. In that space, Kerry, is there work being done on the standard side of things at all? Do you know, from an INCOSE perspective, in any areas?
There's standards working on, we're working in the architecting standards, the systems of systems standards, the systems engineering standards, and there's a couple of other ones, yes. And the thing is, though, the standards work takes a fair amount of time. It's a 3 to 5 year commitment, and we don't like to move people too much. If they start, we'd like to see them through. So there's a few standards that we're thinking of joining at the moment, but we've got more on our plate than what we can handle at this stage. So the list of where we want to get involved, we look at on an annual basis and then see where we need to invest in there. But so, yeah.
Excellent.
JB, I'd like to come back to your first point about, especially with you. I've got Grace Kennedy's picture sitting next to mine, so I'm very aware of the human system integration element. But one of our functions as system engineers is to communicate with people, whether we do that with plans, whether we do that at executing, during reviews, during the test programs, that we're communicating all the time with human beings. And so the socio-technical factors are hugely important. I've been asked by psychologists and other professions whether they should be part of SESA, and my answer is yes. You don't have to be an engineering professional to be a member of SESA or INCOSE, because we do communicate. I use the word cross-disciplinary. We do communicate with other professionals in planning and executing our projects. So I'll be very interested in Grace's panel in a few days' time to see where they're going with there, because I know there's a lot happening in the HSI space and socio-technical factors.
Good, thanks. Good plug there for Grace's panel, Bill, as well as I'll put in a plug for Bill's panel, which is coming up this evening as well. But before we sort of put up the what's coming up next, we've got about 4 minutes roughly left. There are a couple of questions that have come up about certification, registration of engineers, and about SEP, basically. And the point noted there from Carly that the website is in need of update, and we'll take that on board. If anyone's got any questions, actually, Bill, did you want to quickly just talk about SESA's SEP program at all? Just to give a bit of a heads up of how that works, the certification between the two parts at all, or do you want to take that offline and we can sort it separately?
I think we should take it offline, and if I think the website's being updated on the two programs, but we are looking at making sure that the charter in Australia and the certificate through INCOSE are part of the same journey for a professional system engineer. Okay.
There were a couple of other quick questions. I'll just read them out to save time over here. So one Brendan had about, is there actually a systems engineering standards? Brendan, there is an SEBOC, a systems engineering body of knowledge. Kerry, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, this systems engineering body of knowledge, it's updated roughly, it's going through another update over the next 12 months. It's articles, inputs from all over the world, and it's a living document. It's generally maintained every year or two. The systems engineering standard 15288, that's going through another review at the moment. It was released in, was it 2 years ago? I think it was 2017, something like that it was. And so it's due for another release by 2023. That will also coincide with the update of the systems engineering handbook that INCOSE puts out, because that handbook and that standard were developed with a few common authors, and not all of them the same, but there's some common elements there. And so that will be kept in sync. So in 2023. Now the SE handbook is what we use as a reference document. It is guidance, but it's also used as the book to base the examination questions on for certification. In time also, we're looking for a competency approach to certification. That's taking a little bit longer than expected because of the international breadth. We've got to get agreement on all of that competency proof.
Thanks, Kerry. I think that touches perhaps on Michael McKellar's question as well. And if you've got any further questions on them, please get back in touch and we'll provide you with links or information of where you could find out more about these.